Well, hello there, how are you all doing? I put a video up the other day. I don't know how many of you saw it, but it was up for about an hour and 15 minutes before it got took down. Something to do with it being racist, apparently, because I was essentially telling it like it is. There is a very clear push at the moment to fulfill biblical prophecy. To ensure that certain events, certain details that are not just mentioned in the book of Revelation, but throughout the Bible, in the book of Daniel, Isaiah, Elijah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Jude, like I said, throughout, that are basically necessary steps that need to be taken before Christ's return. And like I said, these are being done quite intentionally now. You can see them being done intentionally. And this all stems to, I've mentioned this countless times before, stems to these very old chivalrous orders of knights. One of whom is the Hospitaliers, that I mentioned before, that are on the UN and WHO. And the only other remaining continuously going chivalrous order, which is the OHSJ. They want this to happen. They want these certain steps to be fulfilled because, as I've said before countless times, they believe that it is their job to ensure that they do, to usher in the return of Christ. Their mandate, their motto, Deus Vult, means God wills it. And they believe that everything that they do is God's will. It's what God intended, what God wants. They have the same. Someone said to me the other day, well, what about the Jesuits? They have the same sort of thing. Well, yeah, they do, yeah. And this is something else that I've mentioned here or there. But the Jesuits are a kind of integral part of these orders, both Hospitalier and the OHSJ. They've remained. See, these orders have remained tightly Catholic, very tied to the Catholic Church since they were founded. And both the Jesuits and the OHSJ have a very similar sort of ethos behind them. Yeah, if you look at the Jesuit oath, I'll put it in the background here. But if you read the Jesuit oath, it runs along the same sort of theme, yeah, just slightly more wordy than the OHSJ's simple Deus Vult. But the intention's the same, basically. The Jesuits believe that they have a divine right to do the things they do, because it not only protects the Catholic Church, but it is also what God wills. Which is why when I see people vehemently turning against the Jewish people and the Israelis, I get a bit antsy. And when they're cheering on the Palestinian state being recognised by our feckless leaders, well, I say feckless, they know exactly what they're doing, but by our leaders, and all turning against Israel, again, I get a bit antsy. Those of you who are biblically minded will know exactly what I'm talking about, why this is such a problem. It's not because I'm Zionist. I'm not being paid by Israel. I've never been paid by Israel. I'm not really a fan of the Israeli state, to be perfectly fair, but I can see where this is leading. And it troubles me. I'm probably one of the most well-read non-Christians out there, to be perfectly fair. Better than most Christians, I believe. And this turning against Israel is predicted throughout the Bible several times. It's given us a warning that when this comes to pass, the end times are here, essentially. And you're seeing that across the board. You get many sorts of influences, shall we say, that are supposedly Christian, but are more like medieval Catholic, I suppose. I think you know what I'm talking about there. That are vehemently anti-Jewish and anti-Israel. Mostly through their ignorance. They haven't really got a clue what Israel means in the Bible. Israel in Hebrew means to persevere. Or God perseveres. God persists. And most people believe that it means struggles. It means violence. It means some people even say it means God's chosen, and that's not what it is at all. Like I said, God persists, God perseveres. God persists in all of us. He retains. He will always exist. Will never die. Will always be. Is what it means. It was given to Jacob after he wrestled with the Archangel Michael on the road to see to visit his brother Esau. He'd been the wayward son, and when he returned, he was no longer the wayward son. It was He'd changed, he'd lived his life, he'd been out there and seen the world. Which is why he was given the new name of Israel. Because despite doing what he'd been doing, going out in the world like he had been doing, God persisted, God persevered within him. And the same is true of what the term Israelite actually means. It's not, people go on about 12 tribes. 12 tribes of Jews, most people say incorrectly, and it's not. 12 Israelite tribes. And of those Israelite tribes, only two, yeah, count them, one, two, are Jews, and that's Judah and Benjamin. The rest are everyone else. The rest of the, I suppose you could call it, tribes of Europe and the Middle East and North Africa, which was a known world at the time, and Asia to an extent. We made up the rest when we scattered, when we spread out, after the fall of Jerusalem to the Babylonians, when they were enslaved yet again. Of course, we get the story of Daniel later on. Blah, blah, blah. Within those tribes, though, like I mentioned, there was another tribe that stemmed from Isaac's brother, which was Ishmael. And Esau, that was Jacob's brother, married into that line of Ishmael. And this is where the Islamic ideology comes from, the Islamic line, the Muslim line, yeah, to Muhammad comes from. You trace it all the way back to Ishmael, yeah, not to Isaac. The rest of us stem, like I said, from that, I suppose you could call it Jacobean line, yeah, that Israelite line. Well, that Isaac line, should I say. Whereas the Muslim world see themselves coming out of the Esau line, the Ishmaeli line, and like I said, Esau ended up marrying into that and carrying on. And throughout the Bible, there is a constant conflict between not just the Jewish lines, but also the rest of the Israelite lines against this line of Ishmael. Constant battle, and this is where the animosity against the Jews from the Islamic world comes from. This never-ending battle, because in their doctrinal line, yeah, their dogma, the very basis of their belief is that they were cheated out of their birthright, that they are the true chosen people of God, not the Jews nor the rest of the Israelite tribes. Us. It's them, they are the chosen. So in a strange way, they are the people who call themselves Jews that are not Jews. You see, this also comes from, in the same sort of thing, they also they also gave birth to the Edomites, the Edomite tribes, which is where we get a lot of the Sadducees from, which were the priest class under Herod. Herod himself was an Edomite. He was also from the line of Ishmael, who was placed in there by the Romans. So again, this is the same bloodline that are the Jews who call themselves Jews but aren't Jews. They were never Jewish. They were never from the tribe of Judah. They were never from the tribe of Isaac, yeah, from the line of Isaac, from the line of Israel. They were from the line of Ishmael and Esau. So they are, when they were basically just bundled in with the rest of the Jewish people, the Edomites, by the Romans, they essentially became Jews that weren't Jews. And they have been ever since. People have been looking in the wrong place. This sort of this continued focus against the Jewish people isn't looking at the right people. The synagogue of Satan you already know what it is. It doesn't come from the Jewish bloodline. I've gone through the names countless times before of the people at the very top, giving you them over and over and over and over and over again. You've probably seen them in the window there as I've been talking just now. Things are getting very complicated. Deliberately. We've got forces at the moment trying to work us into a sort of Crusade 2.0. However insanely twisted their belief that they're doing God's work is, this is what they're trying to create, those conditions. Everyone turning against Israel is a very bad sign. A very, very bad sign. Whether you like to admit it or not. That's largely being pushed by the Islamic world. Palestine getting a state is a mistake. It always has been, always will be, because now there's a through line straight from Iran into Palestine, into the West Bank, and now that they're a state of their own, or they're being recognised as a state of their own, it just makes smuggling weapons, any sort of weapons, into there far easier.
So the reality is, I think no matter how far we think about this, this is the trajectory that I see. And also I see a strategy by Trump, by the way. He's really trying to push hard for what happened last time with Iran to not happen again. He's making sure that Israel slows down on the attacks in Gaza. For the last 3 days, it's been reported that Israel has taken the foot off the gas pedal, which again, with Arabs, is a big misstep. That's not what you do when you're negotiating. You don't take your foot off the gas. There's already been some protests and rallies and celebrations in Gaza for winning the war for the last 3 days during the ongoing genocide. That's still going on. They're still somehow celebrating that they're surviving or that they've won the genocide. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But I think that Trump's trying to not have a repeat of that tit for tat that happened with Iran towards the end, where we went super hard, which is how you're supposed to fight in the Middle East. But instead, we're easing off the gas, so making it easier for them. I'm sure, by the way, that was a request from Hamas, which is just something we're not allowed to talk about. But it seems like there's being more pressure put on Israel right now to not attack anymore and slow down instead of ramp up. Because you're supposed to, in the Middle East, ramp up right before you make peace. You have to hit the hardest you've ever hit to force them to capitulate to your peaceful side, to force a surrender, but it's just not going to happen. And what we're looking at right now is a reality where, in my opinion, Hamas stays in power. You'll never be able to get removed. You'll never be able to remove that ideology, no matter what re-education methods you put into power. This is a part of the Palestinian ideology. Palestinians are Hamas and Hamas are the Palestinians. It's one and the same. And even if you are to remove the Hamas from power completely, from political power, from military power, whatever it be, okay, it's still going to be the mainstream Palestinian ideology, okay, is the Hamas ideology. So that's not going away anytime soon, unfortunately. So what I think is that Hamas ideology is staying in the Gaza Strip. It's here to stay. And what we're looking at is a reality where we probably get a quiet time. Trump probably forces Israel into a two-state solution. I think I've said this since his election night. I remember I said this on stream. I really feel like this is where we're heading. I think it's always been where we're heading, to complete the Abraham Accords. And then for their end, there will be no Arab supervision. They will not protect Israel, the Arab nations, no matter who it is. They'll never protect Israel over their own people. And we'll have a direct funnel from the Islamic regime of Iran through Iraq, Jordan, and then to Palestine, the new state of Palestine in the West Bank. And we'll have a war with the state of Palestine, and we'll have to reoccupy the state of Palestine again. This time it'll be a harder war, more deaths and civilians on both sides. It's going to be horrible. And that's probably where we're heading in the future. It's a very pessimistic, very dark future, but I don't really see another way out of this. I can see the tides turning, and I can see that we're going to be forced into a two-state solution.
There is going to be a huge, huge attack at some point in Israel that's going to dwarf any sort of attack that's come before it. That's my fear. At the same time, you've got the Muslim communities in Britain that are going to find themselves in a similar situation as the Jews were in World War II because of the anger that they're stoking. The actual anti-Semites, shall I say, that are in the UK aren't a very large number. The Muslim community isn't as large as they believe either. And I'm terrified that I'm going to see, in my lifetime, something similar to what happened in World War II. You can see the same build-up, the same things occurring. They need a huge blood sacrifice. If you're a Muslim watching this, you need to talk to your community leaders. You need to tell them the rhetoric isn't okay. They need to call out the criminals in their in their midst, basically. You need to call out criminals in your own communities, point them out, call them out. Whenever the government does something that puts you as in a preferred status above the rest of the UK population, you need to tell them, you need to say, no, that's wrong, we don't want that. Because you are feeding the beast. Otherwise, you are accelerating what looks to be coming. This is essentially what I was saying in my last video. It's not going to end well. It's not going to end well.